It's also difficult to conceive a world of crystals and chocobos without Moogles, who first appeared as Doga's security service in 3, but oddly skipped 4 entirely. They guided you to their hidden forest in 5, where you could briefly walk amongst their tribe, but they finally joined the party in 6, saving Terra from an advancing army, and introduced Mog, who could equip the invaluable Moogle charm that allowed you to journey without the worry of enemy encounters for the first time. Since then, Mog and his cuddly wanderers have appeared to facilitate anything from synthesis to saving your game to selling everyday items. Their name in Japanese is a fusion of the words for mole and bat. Despite these animal influences, their appearance has varied greatly over the years. About the only thing that remains the same is their trademark poof on a wire, or pom-pom. Moogles can preserve your progress, and chocobos can chase the horizon for days, but you'll need some trusty steel to make it through each dungeon alive. Excalibur, from the King Arthur legend, and the Masamune, named after the Japanese swordsmith, have been top-tier blades since Game 1. The Bloodsword, Ragnarok, Save the Queen, and Ultima Weapon would challenge their supremacy in later installments. No matter what the class system, characters will often only be able to wield certain weapons. Class, along with Magicite and Zodiac crystals, also determines which characters can arm themselves with the deadliest artillery of all, summons. In some cases, these otherworldly creatures were atmosphere or merely another branch of spellcasting. However, infamous summoners such as the likes of Rydia, Garnet, and Ico, or the beings themselves, such as the Espers of 6 and the Faith of 10, were focal points and drove the plot forward. Espers, Eidolons, Avatars, or Aeons, they've had many monikers, reinventions, and systems. With the exception of the beings that made up the totema of Tactics Advance and the Espers of Final Fantasy XII, which were comprised of original concepts as well as prior Final Fantasy nemeses, most of the summoned creatures throughout the series remained part of the same circle. The pool has ranged from being as few as 8 in its debut in 3 to as many as 27 in the original release of Final Fantasy VI. Most, if not all, of these astral creatures were inspired by classic mythology from a number of cultures. The two beings that appear most throughout the series, Ifrit and Shiva, reflect two cultures from which Final Fantasy drew a great amount of inspiration. In the Arabic tradition, the Afriti, or Afriti, were a violent and cruel race of genii that were often associated with fire. Shiva, one of the primary deities of the Hindu pantheon, was aligned to a number of abstract concepts, such as creation and destruction. Arabic myth also yielded Bahamut, a gigantic aquatic creature similar to a whale, that carried the bull Kuyata, another Final Fantasy summon, upon its back. From Hinduism, there was the gigantic Garuda, one of the mounts of the god Vishnu, as well as the goddess Lakshmi, the correctly translated form of Starlet, who is the matron of beauty and fertility. Hinduism also held the gods Rama, the seventh avatar of Vishnu, and Indra, a deity of weather and war, both of which inspired Ramu, who helped guide the player down the path of summoning in a number of games. The rarely referenced Judeo-Christian mythology inspired the great serpent Leviathan, which was mentioned several times in the Old Testament of the Bible. Egyptian culture called forth the phoenix, a beautiful golden bird that would burst into flames at the end of its life, only to rise again from the ashes, as well as the ancient citadel city of Alexandria, which inspired the summon Alexander. In addition to the many monsters Greek mythology threw at the players, it also contributed the summons Titan and Siren. The Titans were children of Uranus and Gaia, and precursors to the Olympian gods. The Sirens were vicious mermaid-like creatures whose deadly song has been set upon such heroes as Jason and Odysseus. Far to the north, the Norse traditions inspired the omnipotent Odin, father of the gods. In battle, he sat atop his 8-legged steed Sleipnir and wielded the mighty lance Gungnir. On the day of Ragnarok, the inevitable end of creation, the world would be torn apart by the great wolves Fenrir and Garm. Odin was fated to be devoured by Fenrir, who would be in turn slain by Odin's son. These are the basics when building a Final Fantasy RPG, but these quest ingredients typically only make up about 60% of the hours and hours fans are willing to invest in each game. The other 40% is filled with side stories, mini-games, and various added bonuses that are extra diversions for some players, but required material to others. When available, you could wager your weapons and your life in the Colosseum, become a bounty hunter of rare monsters, recruit additional party members, engage in a heated magic card confrontation, carve up a mountain, go for the goal inside a giant fishbowl, and much more. The story often set up these distractions, leaving the option open to unlock a rare treasure once the mode was mastered. All this is what it means to be Final Fantasy, but that's not to say multiple other role-playing franchises don't follow the same rules. As the magnitude of each adventure's time commitment and sales demonstrate, success requires one last crucial element: a brilliant creative staff. Hironobu Sakaguchi, despite doubts and disbelievers, was the mind that started it all. He directed the first 5 games in the series and produced the 7 installments after. Following 9, which he considered to be the finest example of what a Final Fantasy game should be, he founded Mistwalker Studios with Microsoft and officially left Square in 2003. It's difficult to accurately pinpoint specific details he's brought to the franchise over the years, outside of his leading roles, but obviously, Final Fantasy wouldn't exist without him. Nobuo Uematsu's influence cannot be understated. In his relationship with Square, he's composed over 600 tracks for Final Fantasy games, and that's just considering the core series. Over 50 of those have been character-specific themes. He started a music production company in 2004 called Smile Please, and has played keyboard for his FF-inspired metal band, the Black Mages, in at least 8 separate concert appearances and 2 albums. Although his primary focus now lies on Mistwalker projects, he contributes title anthems for Final Fantasy, and several songs he wrote 20 years ago are still irreversibly linked to the franchise. Yoshitaka Amano's illustrations, despite even today's standards of digital animation, are almost impossible to recreate in 3 dimensions, while still maintaining the original's intricate accents. His hand has stayed in the series from the very beginning, despite not designing characters for one of its games since 2001. He continues doing image illustration, logo design, and additional promotional artwork. When creative expression called for technical ingenuity, no single person has developed more systems for the series than Hiroyuki Ito. After sound designing and debugging the first 3 games, he formed Active Time Battles in 4,